Hello, and welcome to the Digital Workspace Works podcast. I'm Ryan Purvis, your host, supported by our producer Heather Bicknell. In this series, you'll hear stories and opinions from experts in the field, stories from the front lines, the problems they face and how they solved them, the areas they focused on from technology, people and processes, to the approaches they took that will help you to get to the grips with the digital workspace inner workings.
How's it? How are you?
Good. Fine. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Thanks. I got a different angle on you today.
Yeah, I started using my laptop as a second screen, but I don't really have room for it on my current desk. But with once I get my new standing desk set up, it won't be so odd. Right now, I kind of have to shuffle it off to the side and hope it doesn't fall off the desk.
When are you expecting your new standing desk?
I've gotten most of the pieces delivered this week, so it requires a little bit of assembly. So doing that this weekend, but super excited to start experiencing that.
Yeah, I remember my foray into the standing desk. I had to build it twice because the instructions are well, the one that I bought, everything came with in one pack. The thing is very heavy. So I took it apart downstairs, took it out the box downstairs, and I had to carry it up piece by piece upstairs. And somewhere in that process, I got the pieces backwards. So I put it all together and then realized the tabletop was backwards. So I had to take it, and it's heavy. So you got to lift it up, you got to tilt it over, get it into the right position. And then I realized it was upside down or back to front. So I had to take it, tip it over again and start again. And then I'd also ordered holders to put the screens on. I got two screens. And there was no really place to put those on the table. You had to drill your own holes.
Oh.
So I had to measure that all out and drill it. And it was, it was supposed to be a half an hour job. Took me 2 hours, I think, in the end. So yeah, lots of fun.
You practically built the thing yourself at that point if you're drilling holes.
Yeah, it's something you think they'd have, but I suppose there's no real standard for that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, mine comes with this like board for you to stand on. I don't know if I'll end up really using that much, but excited to see what that's like.
The balance board. I used to have a balance board. I don't have one with me now, but I miss the balance board. You do use it. It's actually quite a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm just so tired of sitting in the same position all the time. So I know by standing, I'm naturally going to be fidgeting and, you can't your legs will get tired. So excited to switch it up.
Have you got carpets or?
No, hardwood.
Then you need to get a mat to stand on.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I stood for a week without one of those and I had to get one because your feet get sore.
Yeah, finally renovating the home office after nearly a year of work from home, but that's how it goes. I'm really slow to make purchases, and especially big ones like that. I think I was holding out to see if this was truly, a permanent thing for a while, and then, now very clearly it is. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, and you guys have had a lot of snow as well, so it makes sense for you to have a good setup at home.
Yeah, it's hard to get outside for activity. So anything I can do inside to move a little bit more, I need to do right now.
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Exciting. It's all exciting. I just wanted to get my links up that I sent you. Did you have a chance to read them at all or not?
I did. I skimmed through. Like I messaged. I'm definitely not an expert in quantum computing or 5G. So, but I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
Well, I just thought they were interesting. So maybe start off with 5G. So the reason why these were interesting for me is, I've been in South Africa and the spot that I'm sitting in is on the edge of a 5G zone. So I'm very keen to get it once it expands to where I'm working every day. And why it was interesting is I started reading up on what's the difference, because obviously this is just a next generation of radio frequency communications. And I was looking at some of the use cases, and one of the biggest drivers behind 5G, value propositions rather, besides obviously you can have a higher rate of connectivity or higher bandwidth, is lower latency. And this becomes really interesting when you think about supply chain and Internet of Things or sensor type use cases, where you could now in the manufacturing world or just even self-driving cars, you need that low latency in order to control things or capture data centrally. So I think it's going to be quite interesting. I mean, it's something that, it's a natural progression for us, because I think trying to lay cable everywhere in order to deliver the throughput it's not a realistic thing to achieve. But having something like this, 5G being radio frequency, will really be game changing. And with us all working distributed, for the most part, we're in open spaces. In a factory, you'd have issues with radio signals, but in all these houses, you don't need to lay cable to all these houses. You can all just be on the same spectrum. I think it's going to be quite fascinating and quite a big boon when it comes out.
What is the 5G timeline like? When are they saying it's really going to be? Yeah, going to be here.
I think various countries, let's look at it at that level, are rolling it out already. And there'll obviously be companies, telecommunication companies inside that are rolling out things. I think what slowed it down is obviously COVID to an extent. So you might have, we probably would have seen it already. I mean, I know UK, I think it had sort of said end of last year you'd have 5G in the major metropolitan areas. And then South Africa's got it, that tells me it's been pretty close to being rolled out, because there's usually a lag of sort of 4 to 6 months. So I don't know, any time now we should have it all rolled out and everyone can use it. But I think it's been slowed down by COVID. So let's say end of this year everywhere, or in the next 2 years at least. But that's pretty short term anyway.
Mm-hmm. But then to a certain extent, you need devices that are capable of using it, right?
Yeah, so here we've got a provider called Rain, and they actually rent you it's just another wireless unit that you plug in to the wall and it captures the signal. So, most new phones and new tablets and that would have 5G chips already. So I think the iPhone 12 does already, and the Samsung equivalent has already. So it's not a big switch over for you as a consumer, provided you've got a newish device. Where it probably is that it's not the challenge is not on the consumer side, the challenge is on the infrastructure side, getting all the towers upgraded to push out the 5G signal and handle the contention ratios that they need to handle.
Yeah. Well, yeah, looking forward to seeing what that's like. Certainly been aware of all of the hype and some of the conspiracy theories and the very odd backlash. So yeah, that's really been where 5G has come onto my radar. It's just the strangeness there. But.
Yeah, I don't know how people can have what's the thing I always see on LinkedIn? Just because they come out at the same time, causality is not the same as coincidence or something.
Correlation and causation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think new technology is often very scary. So I guess it's not surprising from anything that gets talked about this is going to change the way we live. Change is scary in and of itself, and then technology for a lot of people is like tiny little chips and binary and just things that it's just you can't, unless you have a certain amount of literacy, you just can't. It's hard to really understand what it all means. So
yeah, well, I mean, anything you don't understand in technology, for some people, be black magic.
Yeah.
And I say that in the sense it's the dark arts. People don't understand it, so they think it's bad. It's not to say that we don't know what the damage is to ourselves. There's no long-term studies that say that the stuff's actually safe or not. That'll only time will tell. Yeah, the other one that I sent you 3. So the second one was on quantum computing. Mm-hmm. What I liked about that article was they did like a chart with. Let me just get the chart up, and they sort of had 6 stages. So it was bystanders, beginners, learners, professionals, and legends. And they did sort of adoption ratio. They said the adoption ratio was 2.9 out of 5. And I think what was interesting for me is that they were talking about organizations starting to hire quantum data scientists, which I thought was a pretty cool title for a job.
Yeah. Basically, sounds like, rocket scientist, the same sort of just like very high tech kind of title.
Yeah, and I mean the interesting thing for me is that they talk a lot about pharma doing adoption and building systems, which I was quite surprised at, considering. Well, I say surprised. I didn't think about it. Then I read it. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense, because they want to do things at a molecular level, and you need to be able to process data at a higher volume than you've been able to. So yeah, this is just an interesting article. I don't think we have to go into too much depth. I mean, they didn't. It was just that there's been a huge uptick. If you look at, there's another graph there, which is the private equity investment, how it's gone from in 2015 it's kind of just starting to go up, and then 2016 it's like this rapid increase. Number of QC startups founded has gone over 50, and the volume of investment or if private equity investment, sort of $50 million, but rapidly invested, which shows there's breakthroughs coming.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't Microsoft, there's some Microsoft quantum computing thing that they had announced and then had to sort of take back a bit? Does that ring a bell?
I think they announced a toolkit, and then they said they had a big win. Actually, it was about 2 weeks ago, and then it was an error.
Okay, yeah, that was recent, I guess. Yeah.
I'm just reading it now. They said they had in 2018 paper. They said they found evidence of an elusive theorized particle, and then they did further investigation, and they said actually no, it's just an error. But that's how science should be. You should be able to make a claim, but you could put something out there, and then it needs to be battle tested, and then if it doesn't pass through the battle testing, then it's revoked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know if you had any other thoughts on that one.
Not particularly. I guess my understanding of quantum computing is just really, for the most part, like, it's very rudimentary, like computing in 3D, like very, very strong computers and, computation beyond our wildest dreams, basically, is my understanding. So it is interesting to see sort of more talk of that being applied. And I guess I'd be interested to really know more about use cases for that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, the only one that really resonated to me was the molecular level analysis work they were doing, which would, especially now, would make a lot of sense to us.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, I read a book on quantum computing years ago, and I'll be honest, not much of it really resonated or made sense to me. I read it to finish it, but not to be able to use it. I think I'd like to do some actual courses on it in the future, but I need someone else. I need that to be developed. I'm sort of once it's hit the hump, that's when I want to get to know about it, not when it's still on the rise up.
Yeah, maybe in a few more years, but it sounds like it's getting there. So yeah, I mean, do you want to talk about the third article?
Yeah, so the third one was the future of CX or customer experience, and I thought this was really cool. So there are a couple of things that I want to pull out of it. So I'm sort of find my notes. So one was the use of surveys and how lowly or low the response rates were to surveys. Sort of less than 7%. But survey can generally be a good way to capture information. But what they were saying is that this is not the way to do it, which we've known for years. And there's a big drive here for. Well, what they talk about is that there's the 4 flaws, which was limited, they're reactive, they're ambiguous, and they're unfocused, which, if you think about all the bad surveys you get asked to fill in, I mean, how many times do you actually fill them in? Unless they only ask you like one question, then you might just do it, or even 2. But what I liked about what they talked about is how telemetry was being used to help you with your experience. Now, obviously, there's a level of privacy that has to be considered, but collecting data about what the customer is doing, what pages they go to, where they leave the site, what do they spend time on, hotspots on a page, that kind of stuff. If you talk about a web application, and where they got to into sort of predictive customer insight is building that big data lake where you're consuming all the information and you're just basically dumping it all in one place, and then you're working through that in order to build out metrics and paths and journeys and that kind of stuff, which is some of the stuff we did back at when I was in financial services for our internal systems solutions for desktop healing, was to build a big data repository that you're using as a way to solve use cases. So they go through that at a good level. They talk about a customer level data lake, which is in this case customer, financial, and operational data, but it'll depend on what your use cases are. And then using scoring and an action and insight engine. So scoring, very, very useful. It keeps it simple. But the action insight engine, that's where you want to make decisions quickly. Now, a friend of mine runs a business called Singular Decisions, and that's what they're doing. In fact, I think we should get him on to have a chat around subscriber management. So you're on a subscription to like YouTube TV or something like that. Google TV or YouTube TV? I can't remember in the US. I think it's Google TV.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
or whoever it is. You got Hulu, you got Netflix, you've got whatever. And what they're doing is they're collecting the data, and they're providing, based on their experience of doing this for 20 years, they're giving you the triggers in order to keep your customer consuming, so you don't leave, but you might get a better deal. So instead of, and we used to do this with one of the providers in the UK, whenever your contract was about, when you sign a contract and you want to get out, you phone them and they give you a better deal. So let's say it was, you're paying £100 a month, you get it knocked down to 60, and then when that, and they'll do that for like 6 months, and then when that's coming to the end, you phone them again, you say, I'm still going to leave, and then they give you another discount, and it still stays at about 60, maybe it's 59, and you just keep it at that low rate the whole way through. So you always feel like you're benefiting. Meanwhile, you're still paying them, and for them, it's just about keeping this amount of people consuming the whole time. So this sort of article made me think specifically around what Singular Decisions is doing, because that's what it's about, is using data to make good decisions. And then the last thing, which is a really nice thing at the end of the document, is they say how to turn your data into insight and action, because that's sort of the one of the challenges you have with data is everyone wants a dashboard, but the dashboard is almost too late. You don't just want to see your data, you actually want to see what's been done with your data, and that should be what's visualized on your dashboard. So yeah, nice document. There's about 4 steps to actionable insight, well, the transformation of data into insight and action. And yeah, we'll put the links in there for people to read, but I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, this one I think is the most accessible of the topics, so definitely was able to ponder this one a bit more, and it's also more of a white paper, so there's just more to read on it, a little bit less theoretical and more something that I think people are moving towards today. But yeah, I thought, the insights around, it was kind of funny. They opened talking about how, surveys, well, still very useful because this report is based on a survey, aren't good for CX. Which I think, there's probably something to be said for well-designed surveys and a significant sample size. But I think the overall sentiment is, finding other ways that you can use data about how your customers are interacting. I mean, I think, something that doesn't get touched on with the drawbacks of surveys is also just, if your customer isn't just getting a survey from you, they're getting a survey from many other companies that they're interacting with. And I think at a certain point, people, they still need to live their lives and do their jobs, and can't, a lot of surveys take some time to respond to. So being able to make decisions based on their passive activity is very appealing. And I have some experience with a little bit of this kind of technology to see sort of predictive behavior based off of online and web activity. And it is interesting. So I'd be curious what sort of vendors are filling this space today. That's something that they don't quite get to, if it's mostly sort of like you were doing, internal teams building these models themselves based on the data that they have.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the gap where you're going to have a system integrator filling the gap. So you'll have products that exist, or tools you can use. When we did it, we used Informatica with SQL backend to begin with, and then we looked at Greenplum for the big data stuff. Nowadays, you could probably put all the stuff together using, something that's hosted in Azure or AWS, using Kafka or Spark to transmit the data in and put into an event sequence and store the data in a data lake. So you can build it, 10 different ways. I don't think that's the issue. I think that the real issue is, how do you got to have some IP or some contextual knowledge that helps you turn that data into something useful. So the example with Singular Decisions is they've been in the subscription business for TV for 20 years, so they know how to keep a customer, happy and subscribe to the service. But now you got to turn that into analytics that you make decisions with, and instead of having a human on the end, get involved all the time, they should be only there for the exceptions. So, for example, my thing with the TV provider, when it comes to the 5th month and I'm about to phone them, I should just get a message on my phone saying, "Hey Ryan, we're going to keep you on at your same price. In fact, we've thrown in 2 extra movies or box office for you," and I don't have to phone, because that wastes my time. And now they save me time, and then the brand loyalty will go through the roof, because they just know, I know, they know that they've taken care of my interest, and I don't do it anyway, and they've kept me as a loyal customer for forever. Now there might be a time that I'd still cancel, but maybe for different reasons. But you've
Yeah.
saved your economics on that are good.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think a lot of these use cases are sort of B2C, but there are definitely B2B applications as well. And I think just the move to subscriptions for everything has made focus on CX so much more. I think in last few years, it seems like there's been a much more active CX motion. People are recognizing the sort of the value to that more, and being able to quantify it and affect that journey more than we have in the past. But I think a lot of it does come down to more and more subscription models. You need to keep people around, so you need to focus on their experience more.
Well, exactly. And that's where we should be getting out of technology, is this ability to use our brains for the right things, not just for dead work, for want of a better term. Super. So we ended up there then.
Yeah, I think so.
Super.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Heather Bicknell is our producer and editor. Thank you, Heather, for your hard work on this episode. Please subscribe to the series and rate us on iTunes or the Google Play Store. Follow us on Twitter @the DWW Podcast. The show notes and transcripts will be available on the website www.digitalworkspace.works. Please also visit our website www.digitalworkspace.works and subscribe to our newsletter. And lastly, if you found this episode useful, please share with your friends or colleagues.